Joe Biden is the projected winner in Michigan, adding 16 electoral votes on his road to 270. NBC News correspondent Steve Patterson joining me now from Detroit. Steve, talk to us, if you will, about turnout there and the impact it's been having on the race in Michigan. Looks very, very busy behind you.
You know, I think turnout is probably the biggest story of this election here in Michigan. It was expected to be depressed in certain areas. And remember, we're coming off of 2016 when turnout was the story. That was the thing that Democrats wanted to fix from last time to this time. That razor-thin margin was still haunting them. Less than 11,000 votes. Donald Trump took this state. So their efforts were on those areas to try to get out the vote as much as possible. And by all appearances, it was successful. The totals that are going to come out are going to be historic, both in the overall vote, likely over 5.2 million voters, and then in the absentee vote, likely over 3.2 to maybe even 3.3 or 3.5 million absentee ballots. Let's just talk about that for a second, because you're talking about a state that has never had to deal with that level of influx of ballots. Before coming into this week, they were projecting that it would take well into maybe Thursday, maybe Friday before they were even able to get close to a final tally. So the fact that we're talking about a projection the day after the election, that was never anything that was in the cards for the state of Michigan. So that is another win from the organization that has been on the ground here. And specifically, when you look at the fact that COVID has been spiking all over this state. In some areas in Detroit, the average age of a poll worker, a veteran poll worker, somewhere around 70 years old. Some of those people did not have the opportunity to be poll workers because they were worried about their health. Others passed away from the virus. So there had to be a whole ramp up of staffing new election workers to come in and do the work that you see behind me to get all those ballots counted and sorted and sent out. And then when you factor that in with the get out the vote, it really was an incredible operation, both by poll workers and the Democrats who focused on those city centers. They knew that the absentee ballots were going to come from those places. And that's what we saw at the tail end of this election. You're looking at Flint, you're looking at Kalamazoo, you're looking at Grand Rapids, and right here in Detroit, where I've been speaking to the city clerk all week, she was telling me turnout was going to be something like 50% when it will wind up being, as projected, something more like 53 to 55%, which is even more historic than originally thought. That's expected to blow away about a decades-old overall vote total here in the state of Michigan and here in the city of Detroit. So that truly is the story of what happened in this state. I think Democrats were traumatized by what happened and they wanted to fix it. And by all estimations, it seems like they did. The Secretary of State, I want to say this, still warning that the final vote probably not likely, again, until the end of the week, but they have passed a threshold where we're able to project that unofficial vote and have that projection. But she is still issuing patience. They want to make sure that this operation continues to run so they can count every single vote. That has been a big promise from the secretary and something that they want to hold on to moving forward, even after the projection is already in. Allison?
Steve, I know the turnout is the headline there, of course, but I do have one other quick question for you. I understand police were called to the vote counting facility where you are right now. What happened there?
Real quick, Allison, if you want to see the division in this country, just take a look behind me. I don't know if we can rotate. You can see the poll workers over here, and then behind that glass, those are some what I would call disgruntled, disenfranchised protesters. Some of them were outside of the building earlier. They were trying to push their way in. Some described themselves as election poll watchers, which is typical in a setup like this. When you're trying to tally the vote, you have a certain number of nonpartisan watchers. You have a certain number of certified party watchers. That number was at its threshold, according to reports that were here. I wasn't in the room when it happened, to borrow a Hamilton phrase, but from what I understand, that had reached a threshold. Some of those partisan watchers were upset at not being able to come in. Some of them obviously influenced by the rhetoric that we're now hearing in the lawsuit by Donald Trump, certainly, and wanted to make sure that they got their message heard to push their way in. And they were met by heavy resistance. Police were called in. They were pushed back out. I'm going to send it back to you because this is going to get pretty loud pretty quick. But that's the story here, Allison.
All right, Steve, thank you so much. And you still get credit even if you're in the room after it happened, for sure. Thanks, Steve.
Hey, NBC News viewers, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.